Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's second video. We're doing the USA forecast for today's second video, so it's back after the Christmas break, and yeah, I should get on with the weather of the United States in a moment. Just to say that the first video was our 7 AM upload on a 10 to 14 day for the UK and for the rest of Europe as well, and that'll be coming up later on this afternoon. Please like, share, subscribe on videos. Thank you so much everybody for doing that. I hope you're having a lovely Wednesday. Okay, let's get on with the USA forecast. I'm going to pick things up exactly where we left off before Christmas. Again, looking at the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for New York City. So the red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for New York. We're starting off above average at the moment, very warm, mild first half to winter. But it does look as though some cold weather is on the way. So we're going to get like a first plunge of cold weather coming up in the next few days towards the end of this week and towards the weekend. That doesn't last very long at all. Gets receding back to Canada and it turns much milder. Then another even bigger plunge in temperature takes place through next week, and that is a proper blast of winter, going all the way down to minus 20 at 850 HPA, so becoming severely cold, brutal cold, descending from Canada across much of northern and eastern America next week. Definitely like the coldest blast of winter so far into many of the populated areas of Midwest and the North and the East America. Again, it doesn't last all that long. We see a recovery in the temperature then as we come in towards the middle of January. We pick things back up again, and then get a lot of scatter though as we go into the sort of second half of the month. So we've got the milder ensemble members up here, but we have got some very cold ensemble members appearing again just here. That does include the GFS midnight operation, which I'll show you in a moment as well. So things are definitely developing now with this winter after a very slow start, you know, and not much going on other than abnormally and unusually mild weather through December. Things are definitely pushing on and progressing now in a much colder direction for northern and eastern parts of the states. Winter is properly beginning to get going. Late starter, but, you know, eventually it's inevitable that it'll come with all of that cold air over Canada. Precipitation-wise, there's going to be precipitation coming through, so some rain around in the next day or so. And then, of course, this will be snow as the temperature drops. And then again, just here, that will probably be heavy snow, you know, as this cold front pushes through. Starting off with rain, I expect, and then a big drop in temperature will deliver snow to many northern and eastern parts of America, possibly blizzards in some places. And then after that, looks rather unsettled, with no doubt risk of snow into the second half of January as well. Let's have a look at the snow spikes. So here we go. And again, we see big old snow spikes just here as we get that first real drop in the temperature. Not all that much with the plunge taking place next month, but I suspect that will get upgraded with time. And then this period here looks as though it could be quite snowy, but that is, you know, a very long way out, of course. Temperature anomalies from the 5th through to 13th of January are looking colder in northern and eastern parts of America now. This is a flip around on December. December was coldest in the west and the northwest. Now we're milder out west, although there is a bit of variation. It does get colder as you come to the far northwest, but generally the west is milder, warmer, and it's like the north and the east that's turning colder. So again, just a bit of a change, quite a significant change within the overall pattern, I think, around America, taking the coldest air further eastwards. Precipitation-wise, shows a lot of dry weather in many parts of the state, so it is wetter up to the northwest. Right, let's start going through some chart data, mate. So at the moment, we're still drawing up those very mild southerlies across the eastern, southeastern part of America. That's been ongoing, you know, through the winter so far, really. This area of low pressure, though, out in towards the Midwest, that's going to push eastwards and bring that first drop in the temperature. Meanwhile, out west, high pressure beginning to ridge in from the Pacific, and that starts to bring milder air in from off the Pacific Ocean. So as we go through the next few days into the weekend, we're going to find that low pressure pushing northwards up towards Newfoundland, and that is going to pull colder air down into northern and eastern parts of America as well. This area of low pressure off the eastern seaboard could deliver rain and snow onto the east coast as well as we go into the end of the week. Now we head on in towards the weekend, and the ridge of high pressure starts to reform again across these eastern and midwestern areas. That will draw milder air up from the south. So we saw that on the ensemble. The first plunging temperature at the end of the week doesn't last long. It will get receded back into Canada over the weekend. Meanwhile, out west again looks relatively mild through many of these western states. Now into next week, things start to get even more interesting as this deep area of low pressure you see here forms over Canada. See those blue and purple colours? That's severely cold air with that area of low pressure over Canada. And that starts to move in towards northern parts of America. Some of that starts moving into northern and eastern parts of America. So through the early part of next week, a big plunge. This is the coldest plunge of winter so far through the Midwest and into the east. That will bring heavy snow with it and bitterly cold, severely cold air through the early part of next week. Again, it doesn't last all that long. It's not long before the high pressure is reforming, reforms again in the south and the west, and that cold air begins to retreat back quite quickly into Canada. It's just like a little heads up, I think, from the atmosphere that, you know, things are beginning to move towards a colder direction now across the northern east parts of America. However, by the middle of next week, the ridge has reformed in the southeast and east, and that's drawing warmer air back up from the south into those northern states. And out west, it looks relatively mild again under that ridge of high pressure. Right, so then we move on in towards day 10, and look at this, another plunge is beginning to try and move in from Canada. That one doesn't quite make, just affects the extreme northern and northeastern states. But then we get into the middle of January, and this next area of low pressure is plunging in, and that brings even colder air, I think, in towards the Midwest and perhaps over into some of those eastern northeast states. Again, that will driving quite a lot of snow with it, so becoming with each of these northerly shots, you know, they get colder and colder, and it gradually gets more and more severe as this January goes on through the Midwest and into the east. And so by the time we get through the 18th of January, we've got a classic sort of very cold setup now. A ridge of high pressure is across the central part of Canada, ridging down into the middle portion of America. A mild ridge over on the western side of America from the Pacific Ocean, and this trough of low pressure brings severely cold air into northern and eastern and northeastern parts of America as well. We move on towards the end of the GFS midnight run, and it just stays very cold, really, I think, across much of the Midwest and into the north and the northeast. Meanwhile, out west, it continues to be mild, and even right at the very end of the GFS midnight run, which is 21st of January, looks like we're about to pull in another renewed shot of cold air. Let's have a look at the upper air temperatures. So at the moment, it is relatively mild and warm through Midwest and into the east, and out west, the coldest weather is in the central and northern states. Now look at this first northerly plunge, gathering pace and sweeping southwards and eastwards across most of America through the second half of this week. So again, this is the coldest weather of the winter so far that we've got coming up through the second half of the week. It will bring quite a snow with it. It doesn't last long. By the weekend, the cold air is very quick retreating back in towards Canada. It is just a heads up, you know, the pattern is changing now. Then we go on into the OPAD next week and get this next plunge of even colder air developing over central Canada and pushing south as well. And this is real cold. This is really brutal cold, you know, pushing in from Canada into northern east parts of America. Severely cold there as we go through the early part of next week. Sweeping into the east will bring heavy snow and blizzards and sub-zero temperatures day and night with it. Again, it doesn't last all that long. By mid next week, it is already starting to retreat back away into the into Canada. So it is only a brief interruption of severely cold air. But again, just a reminder that the pattern is shifting now from that very mild pattern that we had during December. Another shot of cold northerly winds there as we get through into the middle of January. That one is kind of kept at bay. But as we go towards the second half of the month, in comes the next shot of even colder air. And that plunging southwards as well, sending most of the Midwest, northern and eastern America into a massive freeze. You can see the setup here, can't you? But it is really through from Canada into the Midwest, into the east, some southeastern states included in this as well. Meanwhile, out west, relatively mild conditions now in those west states. Where it was coldest in December, now that's where the mildest weather is. And the coldest weather is in the northern, central and eastern portions of America. And we really are talking about very, very cold weather indeed. And into the second half of January, this becomes a long-lasting freeze as well. It's not just one of those that retreats away after a couple of days. This cold air is in then as we get into the second half of January, and it's sticking around. Looks like it's going nowhere fast. So the second half of January develops on this GFS run. It could be wrong, of course. On this GFS run, though, the second half of January develops a prolonged, severely cold spell of weather through much of the north, the Midwest, and the east and the northeastern portion of America. So quite a fundamental change in the overall pattern of the Northern Hemisphere and, North America taking place through the next couple of weeks. This is how the ECM is looking. The Euro, again, drawing up mild air across these eastern portions of America. At the moment, we get that first sort of cold snap coming up at the end of this week, courtesy of this trough of low pressure just here. So that one doesn't last long. Very quickly, that cold air retreats away into Canada as we go through the weekend, as this ridge has a go at reforming again, trying to get back to the pattern that we had during December. When you have a long-lasting pattern, the atmosphere weather will keep trying to revert back to it. So we're like swinging between one pattern and another at the moment, looking for both patterns looking for ascendancy. So this is like going back to the November pattern with a high pressure in the east and drawing up these milder southerly winds. But we've already established that early next week we get this blast of very cold, severely cold air from Canada plunging southwards through the Midwest and into these northern and eastern parts of America. Again, that one doesn't last all that long. It's just a little heads up that the pattern is starting to shift. That very cold, severely cold air just retreat back into Canada. And by day 10, the ECM is looking relatively mild, actually, across most parts of America. Just up here into central parts of Canada, we can see that severely cold air sitting there, and that is the very cold air that the GFS, later on, after the mid-month, the GFS unleashes that very cold air and plunges it southwards. Interesting times ahead, I think, for America the next couple of weeks. Let's have a look at CFSE2 before we go. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 4th to 10th of January. Going week has low pressure up to the north and high pressure bridging through the south. Winds and jet stream will come through, something like that. It does allow colder air to dig into those northern states. Into week 2, we see that the trough of low pressure has pushed into the east of the northeast. The ridge has pulled out west. So it's mildest now in the west, drawing in the air from the Pacific. It's coldest in these eastern and northern and midwestern states. Into week 3, that really goes on as well. This is the 18th, 24th of January. High pressure out to the northwest, low pressure through these eastern and midwestern states again. The dip in the jet stream will pull that cold air into those midwestern and eastern parts of America. And then week 4 is going to be the 25th of January to the 31st. Low pressure and the trough of low gets pushed back north, so this ridge builds to the east. That will start to bring milder air for the end of January back up the eastern side of America. The coldest air reverts back to like Canada and northwestern and western parts of America. Temperature anomalies look like this in week 1, 4th to the 10th of January. Notice very cold air across Canada is plunging southwards in towards the Midwest and moving eastwards. The warmest air is in the west and also in the southern states. And then into week 2, which is the 11th to the 17th of January, mildest out to the west and the northwest, coldest in these eastern, northeastern parts of America. Week 3 just goes generally cold across most parts of the state, so it's above average in the west, but most central, eastern, midwestern and northeastern states looking very cold there. 18th, 24th of January, massive change this on what we had during December. And then week 4, which is the 25th of January to the 31st, sees the coldest of that air retreating back up towards Canada, and most parts of America go warmer than average and milder than average from the west all the way over towards those eastern coastal areas. Precipitation-wise, look like that. Week 1, 4th to 10th of January, driest in the east, a little bit wetter out to the northwest. Week 2 is going to be the 11th, 17th of January. Generally rather dry, really, across most parts of America then. Week 3 will be the 18th, 24th of January. Drier out to west and in the east and northeast. A little bit on the wet side, though, also southern states. And then week 4 looks rather wetter everywhere. 25th of January to 31st. Just going rather above average in most parts of America. So yeah, it's a big old change here. Big old change on the way from what we had in December, which was coldest out west, mildest in the Midwest and in the East, in the Northeast, in the largely populated areas away from California. Anyway, big change during January. Going warmer in the west with high pressure coming in from the Pacific. It's going to go colder probably, I would have thought, with this over Alaska, where it was very warm in December. I would imagine there it will go colder, and that cold air from Alaska will plunge through Canada and into the Midwest, into the East and the Northeast. I think it's going to be a much, much colder January for those northern and eastern and Midwestern parts of America than December was, and there will be the risk of some severe cold at times with that. The first shot of that severe cold coming through during the early part of next week. Probably doesn't last, retreats away quite quickly. Watch out for perhaps a prolonged freeze into the second half of January, though. Right, we'll keep you updated. Next USA forecast will be next Wednesday. If you enjoyed the video, please can you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'll be back shortly with a 10 to 14 dayer for the UK and for Northern Europe as well. So keep checking back to the channel for more. But for this week's USA forecast, first one of the year, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.